everyone! Today I'm going to be doing a live reading. This is going to be the very first 2 chapters of my book, Love, Treachery, and Other Terrors. And I'm going to be posting one of these videos per week and probably do about 2 chapters, give or take, per week until we're finished the whole thing. So let's go ahead and jump in. Chapter 1. Fairy Wings, or Lack Thereof. Fairies do not have wings. I am not sure why we insist on depicting them that way. Those who have seen fairies describe them as looking like people, without any appendages that humans wouldn't normally have. We don't know if this is what they really look like, or if they take human form to put people at ease. We actually know very little about them, and they prefer to keep it that way. What we do know is that they are tasked with helping people learn and practice virtue. Usually, they do this by testing humans. I'm sure you've heard stories of fairies taking the form of beggars, blessing those who help them, and cursing those who don't. This is their most common approach, but they have dozens more. While most fairies are content with this vocation, some deeply resent it. 2 in particular come to mind, a mischievous pair of twins by the names of Jace and Acacia. When they were young, they begrudgingly accepted their calling. However, after about 100 years, they deemed humans predictable and frustrating, persisting in selfishness despite their best efforts. At last, they started questioning why beings as powerful as themselves should spend their lives in the service of such stupid creatures. They started amusing themselves by manipulating humans. It was much easier to get humans to practice vice than virtue, so they entertained themselves endlessly by tricking people into ruining each other. Jace and Acacia got the same pleasure from toying with the lives of people that children do from crushing fireflies to watch their flattened innards glow. Fortunately, there is a magical rule that prevents fairies from directly killing humans. And it's a good thing, too. Otherwise, rebellious fairies would have put an end to humanity long ago. Any fairy that kills a human dies instantly. I've never seen it happen, but I like to think they explode into sand. There is one small caveat. A fairy can kill a human if the human attacks first. This rule was not much of a hindrance to Jace and Acacia because they were exceptionally good at getting humans to kill each other. Their intelligence was far superior, they had magic beyond measure, and a complete disregard for the lives of others. After Jace and Acacia had caused 3 wars, the Fairy High Council sentenced them to 2 millennia in prison. The only way to contain a fairy is to seal it in a magic bottle. These are the same magic bottles used to contain genies. You can actually use them to contain anything. They are very handy that way. So, they were imprisoned and their bottles hidden away in a desert cave. The Fairy High Council filled the cavern with snakes and scorpions, and left feeling confident that the bottles would remain undisturbed by curious mortals. They really should have known better. Chapter 2. Fausta's Treason. Princess Fausta was a curious mortal who happened to be in desperate need of a genie. She was having some family problems. They were the type of problems she figured only magic could resolve. While finding a genie was no easy task, Fausta was relentless in her search and persisted for many months, seeking clues and following rumors. Her persistence was rewarded. She found the desert cave and ordered her attendants to burn out the inside. She knew that the fire could neither destroy a magic bottle nor the creature it contained. The vipers that guarded the cave, however, were quite a different matter. When the air within the cavern cleared and it was safe for Fausta to enter, she found herself stepping over piles of charred snake bones. She wasn't squeamish, and might even have stopped to examine the fragmented skeletons if it wasn't for the urgency of her task. Her high head and strong features gave her an aura that demanded respect. Like most Calatheans, she had olive skin and thick black hair. Hers tumbled over her shoulders in waves and curls. Her dark eyes held a keenness and a resolve. She was the type of person who could not be dissuaded once she set her mind on something. Though her personal guards objected, she insisted on entering the cave alone. She did not want to risk anyone else claiming her prize. When she spotted The two bottles nestled in a rocky alcove. She was overcome with delight. Could she really be lucky enough to find two genies? She took the first bottle, pulled a corkscrew from her pocket, and removed the seal. It flew off with a loud pop and a blinding flash. Smoke filled the cavern, and there stood Acacia, blinking and fanning the air with her hand. She was a beautiful, imposing figure, perhaps the only person who could intimidate the haughty princess before her. She stood only slightly taller than Fausta, but she had a regal air about her, and it gave her the illusion of greater height. Her skin was white, and her hair was the deepest black Fausta had ever seen. She should have been beautiful, but there was something unnatural about her appearance which made Fausta feel uneasy. "Has it been 2,000 years already?" Acacia asked groggily. Then she noticed the princess. "Who are you?" Fausta spoke boldly, as if unfazed by the presence of the otherworldly being. "I am Princess Fausta of Calathea," she replied, pulling the cork from the second bottle. It came loose immediately without a pop, but smoke still filled the room. When it cleared, Jace was standing beside his sister. Jace would have been a perfect replica of his sister if he wasn't male. He had the same white skin and the same dark hair, though his was cut short. Fausta thought he was more beautiful than a man ought to be. "Jace?" Acacia smiled. "How long were we imprisoned?" The grogginess had left Acacia almost instantly, and she looked fresh and bright the way irritating morning people do the moment they roll out of bed. Jace, however, still needed a moment to recover himself. "I don't know." He looked around the cave, taking everything in. "I thought it had only been 1,000 years. Not that I'm complaining, but why'd they let us out?" "They didn't," Acacia answered cheerily. "This sweet lady saved us. Isn't that nice, Jace?" "Oh," Jace replied, regarding the princess. "Yes, how very kind of her." "Perhaps we should do something to thank her for setting us free," Acacia suggested. A smirk flickered across Jace's face. "Absolutely." Acacia addressed the princess. "Tell me, what reward can we give you? What would make the fleeting decades of your life more pleasant?" "I was hoping for 3 wishes," the princess answered. "3?" laughed Jace. "She's a bold one, isn't she? She only rescued us once." "Now, Jace," his sister reasoned. "There are 2 of us, so that's 2 wishes at least." Fausta knelt before them. "I do not wish to try your patience," she answered. "A single wish is all I require." "Then why did you ask for 3? Jace grumbled. "Well, just because I thought 3 was standard for genies." "Genies!" Jace cried. "You think we—" But Acacia held up a hand to silence him. "Only in legends, my dear," she answered. "We can give you as many, or as few, as we deem appropriate. Tell us what it is you desire." Jace glared at his sister and mouthed. "I hate genies," she mouthed back. "I know. Shut up." Fausta's face was bent toward the ground in reverence, so she did not notice the exchange. "My father, King Basil the 14th, recently expired." "Just like old cheese," Jace mumbled, and Acacia shot him a glare. "I have 2 brothers, an elder brother by the name of Justin, a warrior in the prime of life. My younger brother's name is Alexander, a boy of 16. It was always assumed that Justin would inherit the throne, but upon my father's deathbed he named Alexander heir." "How interesting," Acacia answered. "Did he say why?" It was something about Justin and I being evil. I wasn't sure what he was saying because he was dying at the time," Fausta replied. Jace picked up his bottle and tapped the opening onto his palm. A long stick slid out, far longer than the length of the actual bottle. The end of it was burned into charcoal. Jace took it and started noting the names of Fausta's father and brothers on the wall. He paused, rubbing his hand along the wall, and observed the soot that stuck to his fingers. "Did you light our cave on fire?" he asked. "There were No matter," he interrupted with a wave of his hand. "Continue." Fausta noticed the ash on the wall where he was writing disappear, leaving only the words Jace had written. Justin, Fausta, Alexander. "So what's your wish?" Jace asked. "I wish to be queen," Fausta petitioned, "in Alexander's place." "That's cheating." Jace commented. Foster looked confused. That's 100 wishes in one, he clarified. You're asking for power, respect, riches, a title, the removal of your brothers. Foster opened her mouth to answer, but Acacia cut her off. It may be beyond your power, Jace, she smirked, but it certainly isn't beyond mine. I never said it was beyond me, Jace objected. I am only saying the princess can't count. Acacia smiled sweetly at Foster. Do you really want to be queen? More than anything, Foster answered. Then you shall be, Acacia confirmed. The dark cave suddenly became bright as day, though Foster could not find the source of the light. That's better, Acacia observed. Blow out your lamp, my dear, save the oil. Let's begin planning. Planning? Foster asked. Can't you just snap your fingers or something? Perhaps that's how it works in stories, Jace answered. But in the real world, magic is much more complicated. We will need your complete cooperation. That's right, Acacia answered. You need to answer our every question honestly if this is to work. Don't lie to us, Jace warned. If you lie to us, we'll know. We know everything. But if you know everything, then why do you need to ask? Foster began saying. First, Acacia interjected. What does your husband think of all this? I don't have a husband. Jace scrutinized her. How old are you? 26. What does that have to? Foster was saying. A princess, 26 and unmarried, he questioned. How unusual. I've been married, Foster answered. 3 times. 3 times, the fairies exclaimed in unison. Foster nodded and then sighed deeply. They all died. I'm so sorry, Acacia replied softly. How? I blame myself, really, Foster recalled. The first was carrying me off after our wedding celebration, when he tripped and landed on my knife. The second died during our wedding feast, when I accidentally spilled hemlock juice in his drink. And the third died of a heart attack after our vows. I don't blame myself for that one. He was a very old man. It was just luck, I suppose. She stared wistfully into the distance and then added, Bad luck, a very bad luck. She pulled a handkerchief from her pocket and dabbed her nose. With 3 husbands dead, my father couldn't find me another suitor. So here I am, doomed to shape my fate as I see fit. How unfortunate for you, Jace sighed. 3 dead husbands, a dead father, 2 dead brothers. My brothers aren't dead, Foster corrected. But they will be, Jace answered cheerily, when you kill them. Who said anything about killing my brothers? Foster asked. You did, Jace answered cheerily. When you wished for the throne. But, Foster began, it's all part of the magic, Acacia explained. Do you want this kingdom or not? More than anything, Foster insisted. Then you have to do what we tell you, my dear. Acacia took the charcoal from Jace and found a flat spot on the cave wall. First she drew Alexander. She had no idea what Alexander looked like, so she just imagined Foster as a 16-year-old boy. It's his perfect likeness, the princess marveled. Acacia then drew Justin beside the young king, imagining how the princess would look as a man in the prime of life. She stepped back for a moment, scrutinizing her work, and then tapped the charcoal on his face to add stubble. How do you draw so well? Foster asked. Magic, of course, Acacia explained, though in truth it was from 1,000 years of practicing on the inside of her bottle. The plan is simple. First, we must plant rumors among the Calathians to build hatred and distrust towards the young King Alexander. At the same time, we must spread word of Justin's charity and kindness. That is going to be difficult, Foster replied. Justin is a violent drunk. He's currently away pillaging neighboring kingdoms. Acacia rolled her eyes. No matter. Justin's character will only be a minor hindrance. We'll alter his image and then proceed to the fun part. What's the fun part? Foster answered. When Justin returns home from the war, you stab him in the back. Figuratively? Foster questioned. And literally, Acacia clarified. Foster gave a little shrug and nodded. All right, and then what? Then find Alexander and cry, Brother, brother, something terrible has happened. When he says, What is it, my dear sister? You say, I'll show you. Then you take him to Justin's corpse, and while he is still gaping in horror, you stab him in the back, Jace interjected. He was too excited to contain himself. Acacia sent Jace an annoyed glare. Then throw yourself over Justin's body, weeping and wailing and calling for the guards. When they enter, tell them you saw Alexander murder Justin, and you were filled with a holy vengeance and killed him. Fausta furrowed her brow, thinking through the whole thing carefully. In this way, you will rule the hearts of the people, Acacia concluded. They will uphold you as a beloved hero for avenging their dear prince, and when you lay claim to the throne, they will support you. Fausta was quiet for a long moment. Is something troubling you, Princess? Acacia asked. Do we really need to kill Alex? She asked. Why not just banish him or throw him into prison or something? Jace and Acacia both regarded her for a moment and then exchanged a look. Is there some reason you wish to keep him alive? Acacia asked. Well, I don't know, the princess shrugged. He's a child. He's not like Justin. He's not cruel or greedy. So what is he? Jace inquired. He's 16, Fausta continued. Mostly he just reads and eats. Sometimes he mumbles. He's been so lost since he was crowned. He wanders the palace with the anxious stare of a newborn calf. He's been coming to me for advice constantly. Fausta rubbed her forehead. Acacia looked at the princess with soft eyes full of compassion. You really are the only person keeping the kingdom together, aren't you? The princess responded with a deep sigh. If only you knew. Your people need you, Princess, Jace observed. Where would Calathea be without you? A wasteland of poverty and sickness, Acacia finished. You know something? I think you will be remembered as one of history's most powerful women. Little girls for generations will come to admire you. Because of your reign, the world will come to realize that women can do anything men can. You have no idea how important it is that your wish comes true. But Alex hardly deserves to die, the princess remarked. Your hesitation is understandable, Acacia said. But if you imprison Alexander, the people will perceive you as soft. And you cannot appear soft to anyone, Jace asserted. Your enemies will see your sex alone as a sign of weakness. Calathea has a woman on the throne, they will say. She's gentle, they would say. Let's sack Calathea, they will say. You must prove that you are as ruthless as any man, and avenging Justin is an excellent way to start. I've never killed anyone who didn't deserve... Fausta started. I mean, Alexander's not like other men. He's very gentle. He's weak. She paused, unsure if weak was the right word. She couldn't think of a better one, so she continued. While Justin is off splitting skulls, Alexander is home asking how this edict or that law will affect the common folk. It's very sweet, but entirely impractical. His gentleness is a product of naivety, Acacia answered. In time, he'll be like every other man, self-absorbed and cruel. All men? Jace objected, shooting his sister a look. Acacia glared at him. Especially you. It's true, Jace admitted with a smirk. What will it be, Princess? Acacia asked. Will you save your country? Fausta was silent. You admire Alexander's concern for the people, Jace added, but you don't seem concerned for them yourself. How will they fare under the reign of an unfit king? All right, Fausta agreed, though her tone seemed uncertain. I'll do whatever it takes. Excellent, Acacia replied. I have a simple formula that will serve us well. She started writing on the wall. Formula? Fausta puzzled. Yes, my dear, there's a science to tainting a person's reputation. Now tell me, where do people talk? I don't understand, the princess answered. People talk everywhere. Of course, answered Acacia. But people talk more in some places than others. For example, do you have a marketplace, pubs, churches? Oh, Jace was giddy with excitement. Gossip flourishes in church congregations. I really don't Fausta began. Hush, Acacia interjected. Just listen, my dear. You will begin in your home. I am sure Alexander is the topic of much conversation at the palace. Jace and I will begin with the common folk. Start a conversation with anyone you can, and begin by mentioning one of Alexander's good qualities. Good qualities? Fosta questioned. Aren't we trying to destroy him? Yes, Acacia replied, but you don't want people thinking you're a gossip. Wait, but aren't we? Fosta asked. Acacia continued, ignoring Fosta's question. It only makes them more likely to believe you when you say less than complimentary things. That brings me to my first equation. She started writing on the wall with her charcoal, then stepped back to reveal the following. Good quality plus I'm concerned plus legitimate concern equals doubt. For example, Acacia explained, you could say, our king seems like a kind person, doesn't he? But I'm concerned because he's so young. Do you think he'll be a capable ruler? I don't see how that helps us, the princess commented. There is nothing false in that, and it seems like something that should be discussed. Acacia smiled. It's not the sentence itself that's damaging, but rather who discusses it, and how they discuss it. You see, if the young king's advisors discuss this concern, they would be able to provide him with the help and guidance that would make him a stronger king. We don't want him to be a stronger king. We want him to be a dead king. So we need to be sure that the people who discuss these concerns are people who can't do anything to address them. Then we can move on to the next portion of the plan. She wrote a second equation below the first. Doubt plus the potential consequences of legitimate concern multiplied by the human imagination equals fear. There are many potential consequences of the king's inexperience. Why don't you name a few? Acacia asked. I've got one, Jace interjected. He may not fully understand the grave responsibilities he has to his people. He might neglect his duties and use his wealth and position for his own amusement. Yes, Acacia answered, and once that fear is planted, we draw attention to everything young King Alexander does that isn't directly related to his kingly duties. What else? Surely our princess has some ideas. Fosta thought. Well, I suppose our enemies could see his age as a sign of weakness and launch an attack. Marvelous, Acacia said. Speak of these potential consequences to anyone and everyone, and if you have any evidence at all that they might come to be, draw attention to it, exaggerate it. Then we can begin the final part of the plan. Acacia began writing again, and as she wrote she explained, Anger is the natural reaction to perceived injustice. Once the people are afraid, they will be watching for injustices in everything Alexander does. You should watch the young king too. Every time he misspeaks, make it known to as many as possible. Read meaning into everything he says and does, and spread your conclusions to every waiting ear. She stepped away from the wall. Now it read, Fear plus the perception of injustice equals hatred. Once the people are sufficiently angry, you can say anything about the king, true or false, and the people will believe you without question. Only when the people hate him can you kill him. You see, he'll already be dead in their hearts. Killing him will be a formality, Acacia added. The princess was looking at the stone floor, lost in thought. How long will all this take? She asked. Has the internet been invented yet? Asked Jace. I take it from the princess's perplexed expression the answer is no, Acacia said and cracked her knuckles. We'll have to go about this the usual way. When is Justin coming back? When the war season ends, Fosta answered. That will be plenty of time, Acacia replied. Then they went on to discuss ways of building up Justin's reputation. According to Acacia, it could be done by crediting him with acts of charity, distributing goods to the people in his name, and dismissing any of the servants who actually knew him personally. Fosta suggested that it might be easier to paint Alexander as the beloved victim and Justin as the cruel killer, but Acacia was intent on keeping the original plan. Jace and Acacia returned with Fosta to Lysandria, the Calathean capital. Jace lived as a merchant in the city, where he worked tirelessly to poison the king's good name. Acacia became one of Fosta's handmaidens, and worked with her to spread distrust in the palace. The more time Fosta spent in Acacia's company, the more Acacia manipulated her desire for power and her resentment towards Justin. As the time to execute their plan approached, Fausta did not have a second thought about killing him. It was Alexander she had second thoughts about killing. Second thoughts and third thoughts, and finally, when the moment came and Alexander stood with his back to her, gaping at the sight of Justin's corpse, she couldn't bring herself to do it. Acacia had concealed herself in human form from view by magic, and stood in the room watching the princess to see if she would follow through. When she saw her hesitation, she immediately revealed herself and started screaming for the palace guards. They poured in to see Acacia, Fausta, and Alexander standing by the body of the prince. Acacia's expression was anguished. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Fausta was white-faced and trembling head to foot. Alexander had been frozen since the moment he noticed his lifeless elder brother. With the guard came everyone else who was within the sound of Acacia's cries, servants, nobles, and palace guests. Most looked in sorrow upon their beloved prince. Some, the few remaining who knew him in life, thanked God silently and excused themselves. Jace entered with the crowd and was the first to speak to them, and was the first of them to speak. "What happened, princess?" he asked. "Who is responsible for this heinous crime?" Fausta had a choice to make. The people hated their king so much that a word from her would condemn him. No one would question her. However, when she saw the confusion in her little brother's face, she found herself unable to speak. Her lust for power battled with her affection for him. As a princess, Fausta was used to getting her way, except in a few small things like marriage and career choice. Most of the time, if she wanted something, she got it. At the moment, she wanted to take over the kingdom without killing her little brother. She had an idea. "When I heard that the prince had returned, I came down to greet him," she recalled. "But when I entered, I saw—" She looked at Alexander with a betrayed expression. Alexander looked back, eagerly awaiting her testimony. "I saw the king driving a knife into his back." There are so many holes in this story that you could use it as a colander. But the people didn't care. They'd been waiting for an excuse to kill Alexander for so long, they swallowed it without question. Alexander would have been torn apart right then and there, had the guard not intervened. As they held the rabble back, they looked at Fausta for instructions. She ordered them to arrest Alexander, which they did immediately. Any loyalty they had to the young king was dissolved by the toxic murmurs of the people long ago. It was clear to every person present that true power resided with the princess. The Calathian Senate was quick to confirm that no law existed prohibiting a woman from ruling. They went on to attribute the late king's choice of heir to madness brought about by his illness. So it was that Fausta was named queen within a few hours of Justin's murder. Her first act was to sentence Alexander to death. Though her enthusiastic subjects wanted to carry out the sentence immediately, she insisted it be done at dawn. Dawn is standard for executions. What kind of a queen would I be if I violated Calathian traditions on a whim? The next morning when the guards came to fetch Alexander, they found his cell empty. The city and all surrounding villages were searched to no avail. When the guards brought the queen the news of the futile hunt, she ordered the matter dropped. That is the end of chapter 2. So, in my next video, we're going to jump to chapter 3, where we see everything from Alexander's point of view. Anyway, if you like this video, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time.